XRP 10,000%, XCN 3,000%. Price predictions. This is NC Hammer Crypto. My name is Neil, keeping technical analysis short and sweet. For those of you who it's your first time in the channel, like, subscribe, donate, become a member if you want. 50% of everything I make goes to save animals' lives, and that's not just talk. I will show you the surgeries when we have enough donations. But let's get into it. We're going to start with Bitcoin, and the reason why I say these price predictions, obviously they're wildly out of proportion, potentially. So we're looking at Bitcoin back in 2013 when it was around $2.48. XRP is around $2.48, more or less. So within a year, from June 2013 to more or less April, or June of 2012 to April of 2013, roughly 304 days, it went up 10,668%, from $2.48 to $266. Can XRP do that? Yes, XRP can do that. Keeping in mind, I don't expect that to be within this year. I could be wrong, but I believe we could see at least $15 to $25 before we start getting some resistance. Looking back at Bitcoin, we had some resistance right around the $30 mark after quite a long period of consolidation. But then we had a push up, being nearly 2,000% up to $50, some retracement, but then still had the continuation all the way up to 200 and roughly, what is that, $266, a 10,000%, 600, 10,000, almost 700% increase in price. And clearly we see Bitcoin has just kept running since then. Let's get it to the more recent days. And Bitcoin pushed up maybe 5-6% from this bottom, 7%. We're currently at 7%, 8% increase on Bitcoin. Now let's look at XCN. XCN pushed up, like I had explained in the previous video. Braden Lawrence talking some mirda about my technical analysis, saying Caesar is better. I'm actually going to tell you why Caesar isn't better in this video, just so we can get on the same terms. But all the advice I give you is not advice, it's pure opinion. Take my opinion into consideration with a bucket of salt, as I always explain, because nobody's right all the time. But I will try and give you the best opportunity to enter at the lowest possible price. As I explained in the previous video, there was the potential opportunity to have a liquidity sweep down to 0.003. Somebody in the comments had asked me if it was going to go down there. I said there still is the possibility without like a major bullish movement on Bitcoin, which we saw right here. When this was happening, I was saying, you know, it looks pretty bullish, looks like we got a base. It can potentially start pushing upward. And when Bitcoin starts to push up, the rest of the market will go with it. Whoever has XCN and is freaking out thinking, oh, this is going to continue to the moon, look back at my previous videos and I explain this green line is what I wanted to see, some longer consolidation pushing up to the 200 EMA, getting a little resistance, testing the red line, and then breaking it, and then we can have our pump. But since that did not happen and we had that major bullish movement, as I have in XRP, the exact date, you can't time the market. I did a pretty good job at it this last time. January 1st was when we were going to see some major market movement, and clearly on XRP, we saw some major market movement. Why was that? That was because the whole Venezuela thing. 28% increase in price right up to that 200 EMA. And if you look at it, looking at this black trend line right here, that was placed from previous history where we had support and resistance. So we pushed right up to that, got a little bit of resistance. Ideally, we want to see some consolidation above the 200 EMA and work our way above this black downward trend line. When that happens, the only real resistance is $2.55, but we could easily be pushing up to $3.40 to $3.67. Now let's look at the 10,000% price evaluation. 10,000%. If XCN is going up, or sorry, XRP is going up 10,000%, you're looking at that $237 price tag. However, I think we are going to see some major resistance here around $5 at 110%. Get a retracement back down to the previous all-time high, tested as support, whether it be one day really quickly, do a liquidity sweep, tap out a bunch of people before taking off. But me personally, conservatively, I think anywhere from $15 to $25 is not a bad bet. Around 541 to potentially 1,000% increase. So 5 to 10x on XRP before we get maybe a year of consolidation, pullback, that kind of stuff. But there still is that possibility to get that 10,000%, which still isn't even putting us into the target, which a lot of people have considered being $10,000 per XRP. But keep in mind that there's going to be XRP being burned. There's going to be XRP being burned, which increases the price of XRP. And we're not going to see these $2.37 price tags anymore for XRP once it breaks out of this channel. The next lowest you may see is around 370. Say, why wouldn't I just wait to get in at 370? Well, because you're missing out on 52%. It's a very good utility coin. It's only going to go up from here. But ideally, we need to break out of this channel, hold it as support to start seeing that continuation. 10,000%. I mean, crypto has blown people away before. We saw it, like I just showed you in Bitcoin. That was within 1 year. It went from 2 something to hundreds of dollars. So that's not out of the league for XRP. Keeping that in mind, as I constantly say, dollar cost average, whether it's up or down, stack your bag of XRP. What I expect to happen now is we have this left shoulder, the head. I expect a little bit of resistance, that right shoulder, push out, and then more or less follow the pattern that I have placed previously. Now, everybody who's here just for XCN, there's a lot to take into consideration. First thing I'd be looking at is the volume candles. If this volume candle can reach the peak of this previous one and close, we could see this consolidate and push up above this red downward trend line. Say, why would you say that? Well, let's revert back to Bitcoin. It moved up 5%, and XCN moved up, since it broke that black downward trend line, 164%. As I explained in the previous videos, there's the possibility to have that massive move up towards the red downward trend line very aggressively. That's not typically what you want to see, because when you have those major movements, you typically have major retracements, testing the 200 EMA or even lower before coming back up and testing the red downward trend line and then breaking it. But also keep in mind, Bitcoin moved up 5%. If Bitcoin has its continuation from where it currently is up to the 200 EMA, that's another 5 to 7%. Say it goes above that and starts getting a little bit of resistance right at this previous resistance point right here. That's 16 to 17%. If XCN is moving nearly 200% with 5%, you're looking at, say you're entering in right at this red downward trend line. You didn't enter when I gave you the opportunity or the information back at 0.004. You could stack your bag and say it's going up, what is it, 17%, that's 3x. So you'd be looking more or less around 5 cents for a minimum. There's going to be some major resistance at 5 cents. That's 323% as opposed to Bitcoin going up 16%. You're in it for the percentage. You're not in it for the profit, because you're looking for these smaller coins like XCN that don't cost you $100,000 for one. You can buy it at 0.004, now currently at a penny. So you missed the opportunity to double your money if you did not enter in down there. So like I explained, there's the possibility of that liquidity sweep. That is no longer a possibility. All the money has been captured It is pushing upwards. So the bears who were doing future trading and leverage trading all got liquidated with this push up in these 2 days. So what can we expect for the XCN and its movement? If Bitcoin has its continuation, we could easily see this push up to roughly 5 cents yet again. That's if Bitcoin does its continuation. If Bitcoin does a tiny little pullback, say it's still not finished, it wants to fill out inverse head and shoulders, which would be the left shoulder, more or less head, and then right shoulder, and then break the neckline, you could see that push back up here to around that $110 to $115. With that, XCN can run. Volume's picking up. We are completely overbought in the daily, which means typically we'll see a little bit of consolidation. We'll see this pull back, and then we may see another pop, which can be pushing it up to around the 0.031 cent mark. On the 7th, so tomorrow at more or less 10 to noon, I'm planning on doing the contest. So anybody who's interested in doing a contest to earn some money, people who donate, it's going into a pot. 50% will go to support the channel. 50% of that will go to support animals' lives. But the other 50% is up for grabs for anybody who does join the contest and does a donation. So you're putting in money to earn a potential pot of money, which is just a win-win for everybody. And XCN, once it breaks this downward trend line, that's where the real movement's going to happen. It could be happening tomorrow. It could be happening a week from now. But as you see here, this orange line at the 0.012 was our resistance and our support from way back here on the 12th of June. And that's exactly where it tapped before getting pulled back in to the downward wedge, these two red lines that we have placed here. So the possibility of XCN going up 3,000% is still a major possibility. Say we're at 0.011 more or less right here. 3,000%, 3,500% is around the 42 cent mark, which isn't out of proportion. It's still a high possibility. A lot of people are going to be selling off at the 10 cents, which is around 860% increase in price. And the all-time high is here around 18 cents, which is 1,540% increase in price. If you guys watched the previous video, it would obviously be quite a bit higher because you would be buying at double the amount, essentially, from what you can buy currently. Say we're going up to that 42 cent mark, that's almost 10,000%. Just from 2 days ago, you had the opportunity of 10,000%. Now you are cutting that in half and potentially getting 5,000%. Still astronomical gains, 50 to 100x with XCN, and a lot of good utility backing it. XRP and XCN are the top two, in my opinion. And to talk some trash about Caesar and him explaining just buy everything, whether it's going down or it's going up. This is the example I like to point out. He posted a XYO video whenever XYO was pushing up to the 200 EMA around 0.008, saying buy it, buy it, buy it. And then what happened weeks after? It just killed itself all the way back down to 0.004. I try not to give you this bullish, hype, trying to say buy something just because it's going up for one day. You have to see the retracements. It still went back underneath this trend line. And just a few days ago, I recommended XYO for an entry because we were about to cross the downward trend line and close above that downward trend line. CM Guppy's thinned out. And if you guys heeded my opinion, you would be up more or less 35% on XYO. It topped out around 52%. But it tested the 200 EMA, still has a very long way to go. So if you haven't entered, enter that one. And then lastly, throwing it in here, Tornado Cash. Most of you guys have already left the video. But Tornado Cash, if you guys use the reference link in the description below for MEXC, right now, it will give me $60. If you guys use that reference link, it'll give you $20 in USDT. And then if you deposit 100 USDT, and do one future trade, I will give you the opportunity to get 50% of what I am given for you guys using the reference link. So if you use the reference link, you will acquire more or less anywhere from $40 to $55 in USDT just for using the reference link. Always recommended using a VPN so you can use MEXC freely and not be restricted with anything. Download a VPN, get on MEXC, and use that reference link. But MEXC does a bunch of giveaways. Nothing is free. There's no such thing as a giveaway. I don't know what YouTube wants to hear. That won't be a policy violation. None of this is get rich quick. It's not a pyramid scheme, anything like that. But Tornado Cash all-time high is $459. As I stated many times before, $11 is the base. Clearly, we've seen that over and over again. It's called NC Hammer Crypto for a reason, because this is a hammer. This is about to get pushed up to around the 24, 26, 39, 58 from a $12 price tag. So that's it for this video. Like, subscribe, donate if you want. 50% goes to save animals' lives. The other 50% goes to get me a microphone or new iPad. So if you can't hear me, you can hear me then. Good luck. Have fun with it. I'll see you on the next one.